You're listening to the Open Books Podcast.
Your next chapter starts now.
Is it love, 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 love that I'm feeling? Is it love, 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 love that I'm feeling? Is she the one?
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Open Books Podcast. Today we have such a surreal, full circle moment episode. We're sitting down with someone whose books have haunted us,
Yes.
traumatized us maybe, inspired us, and genuinely just shaped the kind of books that we love reading and have formed our audience around reading as well. We are so honored to be joined by our favorite author, Dr. Lucinda Berry.
Hi, Lucinda.
Hi.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well,
We're so excited.
thank you again. And we just wanted to start off by saying we have read so many books of yours, all for the podcast. Our favorite honorable mention we have to talk about is The Perfect Child.
Oh my gosh.
So that was one of the first books that we actually read for the podcast. Then we were so obsessed with your books that we were like, we need to keep this momentum going. So then we did Saving Noah. That I told Amber on the ride here, we were thinking about the books that we read by yours. That was the first time I've cried on the podcast. So thank you for that. Talking about Saving Noah. We loved it.
You're welcome.
And then we followed up with A Welcome Reunion.
Yes.
And then what was it? And
When
then,
She Returned, then we did When She Returned.
yes. So you
Which-
are a very popular author over here with our audience. Like, we are just obsessed. So we're so excited to talk to you and like really get into the mind of the woman who wrote Janie.
Yes. Yes, we're so excited.
So, okay.
I love talking about Janie, first of all. She's like one of my favorite characters. And you know, I just finished writing the prequel. That's like half of what's on my walls right now.
The spoiler
Stop.
wall.
That's the spoiler wall.
No, well, we thought, well, we read A Welcome Reunion. So there's another follow up to that coming out.
No, it's a prequel.
Prequel.
So it's like
Oh,
Janie's
prequel.
origin story. So it's everything that happens before. It's like everything leading up to her being abandoned in the parking lot. And
That's
it was the
amazing.
fun, like the funnest thing for me to write, because The Perfect Child was like hands down one of my funnest books to like actually write. So anytime I'm in that world, I love it. But yeah, so the prequel is actually called Her First Lie, and it's a full-length novel. So you know how like a welcome,
It was
you know
shorter.
how like a welcome reunion was short. It was
Yeah.
like a novella length, which I wanted to do a full length, but it didn't work out that way. Anyways, but so it was short.
interesting.
I know, because that means there's more.
I know.
Yes. So Her First Lie is a full length, and I'm just finishing up like the last little like nitty gritty editing parts of it. But yeah, the story itself is already done, and I'm so excited. Yeah, because
Well, so are we.
We are too.
everything that led up to Janie being abandoned, and then it's like some of your other questions answered about her birth.
Yeah. Well, it's such a pressing question. Who is this little crazy girl in a diaper in the parking lot?
Right. We probably, if we went back and listened to that episode, we probably had questions that will be answered.
That
in
will
the
be
prequel.
answered in this. Yes.
Because there's a lot you never know, right? So you never. Ooh, that will be some spoilers. I don't want to say anything more. But so there
I'm
already
getting excited.
Me too.
reunion ties up a lot of the big pieces.
It does.
A lot of her, what was happening in the trailer pieces. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
You all both read it. So it's like, but those pieces are never really addressed in a welcome reunion. There's, but in Her First Lie, it's all about the trailer, how she ended
Her
up in the
origin.
trailer.
That
Had
is
she
gonna-
become so creepy?
That is going to be so good.
We always joked in that episode too about the most insufferable husband book character ever, Christopher. Wasn't that his name? I still remember everything
Yes.
because we were like, someone needs to get Christopher. He's being so
Get-
annoying, not
get
believing his
Christopher.
wife.
So funny.
And I'm like, we need shirts that are like, we hate Christopher.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, he
The
probably
merch.
is probably the worst male character I've ever written.
So, okay,
Yeah.
quick question about that like writing process. So, did you already have like her Janie's backstory in mind when you're writing the other two books? Did you always
Mhm.
know that you were going to come back to it? Or was this just something that you decided like, okay, I want to go back to this story?
Well, so I had a rough idea of what her backstory was, just sort of putting together the perfect child initially, but I didn't know that I was ever going to be able to like go back and write the before, right? Like, so no, I didn't. When I was like envisioning it now, most of it was new, right? It was all really like, okay, what actually happened? Because it really goes into her family tree, right? Because to answer Janie's origin story, we have to know like who's Janie's mom, right? So that's a big part of her first lie is who's Janie's biological mom, right? Who birthed Janie? And I love Janie's birth scene, and I'm just gonna say that. And when it comes out, y'all need to talk to me about it.
Oh my God, her birth scene.
We'll just put it her birth. Yes, her birth.
Okay, we'll just start like a group message.
Yeah, don't worry, we
Janie's
won't forget.
Janie's born, and I'm just gonna put a little pin in it.
Okay. So excited.
We'll revisit that in April. So it comes out in April, and I'll make sure y'all are on the list.
Please.
For an early copy, and then we'll revisit it in April, and we'll talk about where Janie was born.
Don't worry, we won't forget.
We won't forget.
Janie's birth story.
Janie's birth story. Okay, so we're coming back to that. So I guess this is a good time for us to go into our next segment, and that is opening up with you, Dr. Lucinda Berry. So before we jump into the book, we just kind of wanted to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about your journey as a psychologist? What inspired you to become one? What was schooling like? How long did you practice?
Long question, but
It's long, but we just had to get.
I'm like, those were a lot of questions. School was very, very long. My son, when he was young, used to always tell people like I went to extra school, but he used to say it like I went longer because I like needed the extra help. I was like, no.
she went to extra school.
Extra school. I like that.
I have a PhD in clinical psychology, and then I have a specialization in child trauma and neurodevelopmental disabilities. So that's a really big mouthful. If you've watched like any of my videos or been on any of my lives or things like that, I always make it sound like I was like on the path of psychology, and then I just like abruptly jumped off and like started writing stories, but that's not like exactly how it happened. So in psychology, you actually do a lot of writing in psychology, particularly if you're in an academic or scientific program, which I was, right? So there's a lot of writing involved in it. So I did a ton of writing in psychology and in like the academic field, right? And for me, psychology, writing, and trauma have always been intertwined. And all of my research through my master's and then in my PhD looks at the role that writing plays in helping individuals recover from traumatic events. So for the 5 years or whatever it was that I was in school and doing research like outside of the like seeing clients and your classes, a big part of any PhD program is research. And so my research always focused on using writing as a tool in helping people move past and into healing from traumatic events. So, and then it just so happens my experience is a little bit unique. So then in between my master's and my PhD, so that summer, that August, I went to Southern Miss for graduate school.
No way.
And Hurricane Katrina hit that year. And so I just so happened to be a trauma researcher living in the middle of the biggest natural disaster, hurricane to hit. And so then I pivoted. And so all of my dissertation research, the things that people were writing about were their experiences in Hurricane Katrina. And so I collected all that data on the sand, like, because, the campus in Gulfport was,
Right.
didn't even exist for like a year. Everybody was in Hattiesburg. So
Right.
anyways, yeah.
That's a connection
It
to
is a
us
connection.
for sure.
I find it so interesting that you shared that because Colby and I, we did a Hurricane Katrina episode.
Right.
And we were
'Cause
discussing
We're born and raised in
in New
Orleans.
Orleans.
So
I
we,
knew that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember looking you up and seeing that. That's probably why the Hurricane Katrina stuck in my.
yes.
Well, it's so interesting because we were saying like when Hurricane Katrina happened, we didn't realize at the time how traumatic that was. And then when we were talking about our experience, it actually, in that moment, we were like, wow, this is actually very traumatic now that we're talking about it as adults.
As adults, yeah.
How
so
it
we
just
could have
came
used,
back.
We could have used you at the time. we were your like target demographic. Because that's just so interesting that you have that connection to Hurricane
Yeah.
Katrina. Because that's such a big part of our life.
We have an invisible string.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I was working, I got special clearance, to like, because again, there was martial law in Hattiesburg, right? And so we had all of these things, because the hurricane itself, like as I'm like telling you guys, like you don't know this, but like the hurricane itself hit Mississippi way harder. It was a Category 5 when it came through, the hurricane itself. Like the problem in New Orleans was it broke the levees,
Yes.
right?
Right.
But we got just like wrecked by the hurricane, right? Itself. Just from the winds and all of that. And so it was like we had martial law. It was like we had a mandated curfew.
So
like
crazy.
you had to like, in order to go like across like the railroad tracks, like in Biloxi, you had to have like special clearance. So I had like all of these things to like maneuver around, and like the hospital sort of became like where it was like there was all of these sort of like abandoned children in the storm that we were like trying to find out like who were they, who did they belong to. I mean, yeah, it was like there was so much that happened during that time period that you don't really think about until you actually talk about it, right? And then you're like,
Exactly.
oh,
Like, oh, we really went through that. It's crazy too. A lot of people forget about that side of Mississippi. Like a lot of people, when we did our Hurricane Katrina episode, they're like, don't forget about Mississippi. Like they were so greatly impacted too. So it's crazy that you were there and a part of it. We had no idea.
yeah. I mean, I lived without, and it's so funny because you always say you'll never forget, right? You're like, I'll never forget what this is like. And you just go back to your regular life, because I lived without electricity for like 6 or 7 weeks, all kinds of things, but then, once life starts,
Yeah. Got to get back to it.
I mean, it's like you just go back to like taking all of those things for granted.
Yeah.
You do.
Exactly. Well, you kind of answered our next question, which was how did like you transform into psychologist turned author? But that does lead into another thing that we really wanted to know, which was how did your background studying childhood trauma and everything that you just kind of talked about shape the kind of stories that you tell?
Well, we started out with talking about The Perfect Child, right? Which is one of my early books. And so almost all of my early work is like pretty closely aligned with like actual, loosely related to actual cases that I was seeing at the time, right? Like The Perfect Child, back to that hospital that I was talking about in Mississippi that I worked at. I actually worked at one of the few inpatient facilities for kids 12 and under, right? Locked psychiatric facilities, right? And so it was during that time that I saw my first kids that were like Jamie, right? And so I was always scribbling notes, and like that story was happening the whole time based on the experience like in those hospitals and the kids that I was treating and seeing. And in The Phantom Limb, if you've ever read that, that's also loosely based on something that really happened, that then I was like, ooh, what would happen to the twin sister in this situation if? And then that's how Phantom Limb was born. But it's shifted over the years, right? Because I don't practice anymore. But you'll still see in all of my books, they're still very, very psychology driven and motivated, in that all of my stories are like within the psyche of the characters. Do you know what I mean? Versus, I don't know how to better explain, you know. So they're all character driven, versus some of the other ways that you can write thrillers and mysteries, you know. And there's all of those pieces in my characters that are still there. And then you see the basic things, like there's always social workers in my books, there's foster care themes, there's you know, this is a safe space that I just wrote is like she's a therapist, you know. So there's all of those pieces that you see in everything that I write and do. You know, it's like it still filters in there a lot, just maybe not as like heavily drawn from actual experience as it used to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like when we read your books, it's very evident that that is your background because, like you said, it's a lot of like social work and like social crisis and things like that. So it's very evident that that's kind of where your background is, and that's why we love your stories too. You said they're so character driven, and we love that. But also they're so plot driven. Like you're so good at like a plot twist. So I think you do such a good job at weaving in those like real life social crises and situations, but also like giving it a thriller vibe, a thriller twist that make you just like, wait, what?
Yeah, I think it also makes the characters so relatable too, that it makes you like they're going through such traumatic
real things
that you want to know what comes next. Going back to the being character driven. So we talked briefly about this, but just kind of walking us through your writing process. Like how do your books get started from start to finish? Long process.
It's so interesting for us as like readers to hear how an author comes up with the stories that we love. It's so fascinating.
Well, for me, it varies from book to book, as far as the like coming up with the ideas and how the initial ideas come out. And what I mean by that is like sometimes a book comes to me in a twist, right? It comes to me that way. Like with Saving Noah, for example, I wrote that almost backwards in my head, sort of, because I knew how I wanted it to end. So Saving Noah came to me in the ending, if that makes sense. And I'm trying to talk about it without giving anything away, right? So it's like that one came to me in the ending versus others. The story sort of comes to me like in a scene, like Appetite for Innocence is one where that one came to me. You know, the opening scene is one of the young girls is putting, you know, earplugs into her ears to drown out the sound of the screams, right, from one of the other girls. And so that book came to me in a scene, right, but at the very beginning. And then other times it's a character, right? Because like in The Perfect Child, I knew I wanted to do something that toyed with the idea of a child that was a sociopath, right? And so that one came as like the character first. So that's how they come like initially, right? Now, once I'm actually in the actual writing, one of the things we were talking about before we started recording was that like my office right now that I wish I could show you, but there's information on there that you also can't see.
I know, like, give us a peek.
But so, yeah, it's like I have in the front of me, there's a whiteboard, right? And so that's covered in different pieces of the latest book that I'm putting together, right? And then when I run out of space there, I use my closet mirror, and that's when I really start getting into like the nitty gritty details of all of the different books. So regardless of how they start, and that all happens very differently, they sort of make it onto my walls where then I plot the different pieces, right? And then I just kind of go for a while and see what happens. Because I am more of a pantser when it comes to writing than a plotzer.
Yeah.
When I'm writing fiction. And that's why I think that I like, if I ever try to like plot and do outline, because like some writers and authors are very, that's, you call them plotters, right? It's like they have outlines, they have spreadsheets, they have notes upon notes, all of this very organized process from sort of like beginning to end, right? And I can't do that because it just immediately like stifles my creative voice. But I think a big piece of that is because it reminds me of academic writing, right? And so that's sort of how I do things when I'm writing academically. So the minute I shift into an outline, it's like I shift into Dr. Berry. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, and that's a different muscle, right? And it's like, and so anyways.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
And then I'm always listening. I'm almost always like, I don't write in silence. Like I cannot. I can't write in silence. I'm almost always like listening to something. I move around a lot. So like my house has like all of these various writing spots, you know?
I love that.
That I am at like throughout my day. So it's like I might write a little bit in my office and then I like go outside and I write on like my porch. And then I might go to the front, you know. So I move around all day long while I'm writing too. And I love to write in coffee shops too. That's like my favorite. One of my favorite spots is I love. You probably, I mean, I'll be like, you will find me in a hot coffee shop on the regular.
Yes, we can't put you in a box.
No. See, that's so interesting because I guess I always think that it's just like typing at a computer.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot it is, but it's definitely not for me. You know, I mean, mine's very, like I have to move. It's very fluid. I have a lot happening and going on. Yeah. If you put me in a room and we're like, okay, sit down and write for, you know, however many hours I'd be like,
feels like college.
It's like, that'd be like I'm taking a test. Like, I'd be like immediately like,
No, I think that makes total sense. Like when you, like you said, when you're in a creative space, you can't be put in a box like that. Because we just looked at your TikTok of you, like you're like, this is me writing a book, POV me writing a book, and you're like writing all over your walls.
Yes.
So that was a good visual. So I'm picturing you doing that, and it makes total sense. And I find that so interesting. So
I do too.
We've been dying to know, like, how does the book come to life?
Yes.
And it makes sense. It's like it's very fluid, like you said. It's not linear. So switching gears, thank you for that, by the way. But switching gears, we need to know about your time on Dr. Phil. Like, how did that happen?
Please.
And what was that like to be on Dr. Phil? Like, just tell us everything about Dr. Phil.
Okay, so this goes back to my whole like psychology writing, like everything's always been intertwined, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a mom, and back in the day when my son was really young, right? So I mean like baby young, like baby toddler years.
The best.
It's like I could not be in the hospitals doing any sort of trauma work when I had a little infant. I just couldn't do it. So I was doing all of these other things, right? So I was teaching, I was, doing all of these things online. And so one of the things that I started doing during that time period is I started blogging. It's so embarrassing.
So
no,
cute.
that's not embarrassing.
We need to look up your vlogging era.
I was like one of those, I was like a mommy blogger, right? And so
You've lived so many lives.
No, I'm literally sitting here like, yes.
I really have. I mean, I have, there's been many different parts of me. So, and this was one. So I blogged on about all kinds of things. And I was sort of, during that time period, like you'd go viral blogging, right? So, and it was always stuff on like attachment parenting. And so I was always the sort of voice of scientific reason in all of these arguments. And so in all of that, it was like all of these, like I like back in those days, it was like you wanted to end up on Huffington. Like if your blog got reposted on Huffington, like
big deal,
you made it, and all these things. So, during that time period when I'm blogging and in the middle of these mommy wars, what started at, there'd been a post that two of us mommy bloggers did, and it was like a whole like little fight, and
That's amazing.
The mommy bloggers are fighting.
it was. I was all up in it. That's why I was like, oh my god, it's so embarrassing, but this is how I ended up there. So I don't argue with people on the internet anymore. But so they were like, it was this other person had been on the front of a magazine cover, and so Dr. Phil's people contacted me, and that's how it started. And so, but it's crazy because I don't know how these things work, but you have to go through this huge like credentialing process to be like officially labeled an expert, right? And it's like you have to send them like your CVs, I had to send them like so much stuff, right? Just like proving you are who you say you are, and you can say you're whoever the hell you want to say when you're on the internet, right? Like you can say, lots of people, but so they make you show all of your credentials to be like you are who you say you are, right? And so that's like a really long process. And so then I started, so then I went on like Dr. Phil a couple times as a parenting expert. And then I actually wanted to pull it out of my garage because I have some of the like random magazines that they would so whatever happened after that, I got put in some database where like randomly then like the Today Show or Us Weekly or In Touch would like call me and be like, hey, and they'd ask me like random questions about parenting. Like usually it would be about attachment parenting because that was like where my stuff was. And then I just get these like little random one-liners of like commenting on like Julia Roberts parenting, like all. So yeah, it was all very, very weird. And then I got, I got some very also unpleasant attention from some of that stuff that I know that I didn't like, that was a little bit scary. So so then I just kind of walked back from, but for a while I was like all up in it with all of the mom stuff, which is so funny now because I have like my kid is now a senior in high school, and I'm like, none of that shit mattered. Like all
right.
Like
that's so funny.
Guess how often it came up whether he was breastfed or bottle fed.
Yes.
Like in his life after he stopped being a toddler.
Oh my god.
Right? But you drive yourself, like, I don't know. Anyway, so it's very funny now being on that end. Like a mommy blogger that then had the PhD that was like sort of I was always like the scientific sort of voice of reason and all of the madness of calming everyone down. And
yeah, and you got like labeled as like the expert to call. Like, oh, let's get her to comment on this. And then you would get like a random comment. That is so funny.
Such a slay.
It is a slay. You're like, oh, let me just tell the Today Show.
It'd be like, defines attachment parenting as blah, blah, blah. And it'd just be like some random thing that I said that they pulled out of like 3 paragraphs, it was like so bizarre, but
So interesting. Yes. And it's funny, like you said, like when your child is older, you realize how little that matters. Especially for me, it was like after the second kid, I realized like so much of those worries and like bottle versus breast, and like, they're fine. Like, just do you, be a good mom. It's all okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's like at the end of the day, it's like love them and be safe. Like, be safe for them and love them. And
that's like
all of
the
the
best
stuff
advice.
that you like drive. Like, I wish I could go back and have a talk to myself about like thoroughly, because I would have enjoyed it so much more versus like being such a neurotic like
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that's
me
universal for first time moms mostly. Besides Janie's mom, I guess. But I guess we'll have to find out.
Wait till you see what Janie's mom was like.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
She's going to make us all feel much better.
Yeah, she will.
Yeah. That's like the perfect segue
It
into
is.
our next question. So, can you tell us about your perspective on motherhood as a successful author? Were there any challenges finding the balance?
I just think that as mothers, there's no way to win. I mean, that's like my overall thing. It's like there's just no way to win in the, whether you like stay at home, whether you work, whether you do a combination of both. You know, I always like, I don't know where I heard it, probably TikTok, but it's like the fact that like we don't even have a word for working dad, you know, yet we have working mother, you know, but the word doesn't even exist in the vernacular for dads, right?
Wow, yeah.
It does, you know, it doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute and the implications of that, you know? It's just we're expected to be so many things to so many different people, you know? And motherhood is like really hard. It's really hard. I think it's really, I made like one of the things for me is really like finding your people. Like I had a hard, you know, because you're also, when you become a mom, then you're also put in these situations with people that you wouldn't like maybe normally hang out with, but your kid is 4 and they're having a birthday party and so everyone's together
Right now.
and those dynamics can be challenging, right? It's like those dynamics can be really challenging. So, but yeah, I think it's difficult, and I think that's why it's all the more important to like find your people and keep them close, whether it's one or, you know,
Yeah.
6.
I love
need
that.
them.
We so
You
agree.
need
Yeah.
them, you know, you need them. Just
Yes.
you don't, you know.
We're really
to
big in that
normalize
phase
your
right now.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
We're really big in that phase right now of like finding the people that you really are in your corner, because that really is what matters at the end of the day. Is like the community around you, people who are really on your side, especially in motherhood.
yeah, completely agree with that.
Yes.
Okay.
And that really, I'll say that part never really, that's been like the consistent thing throughout all of the like different phases and stages, you know, that's been the one consistent thing.
Yes. Having the right people. Well,
Yes, having the right people around you.
Well, to kind of sum up like the opening up with Lucinda, we just wanted to ask your advice. So obviously you have had so many successes in your career, but of course our listeners and us, there's so many goals that we have. Like you want to be a successful author, a successful podcaster. What can you say maybe for people who have like hit a wall? So like you're really reaching towards that goal. Maybe did you have an experience when you were like putting yourself out there as an author for the first time and you hit a wall and you're like, am I really doing this? Can I do it? Like, how did you get from point A to B to be like, okay, I'm putting myself out there in a big way, and now you're successful. So what do you say to the people that are kind of like in that limbo of finding their place and confidence in what their dreams are?
Well, I mean, the thing that's like the most important is like not giving up, right? Because especially if it's anything that's creative, you're going to hear a lot of no's, and rejection is always going to be a part of it. It literally doesn't matter how successful that you get, right? So there's that. And it took me a long time to have any success really, like as a writer. Like initially, I got hundreds and hundreds of no's from agents when I was querying, because Phantom Limb is actually the first thriller that I wrote, and I actually started that in graduate school, and it's, you know, because it's based on a whole thing. And so when I was finished, I knew, because I love thrillers, it's what I predominantly read myself, and so I knew I had a good book, and so I started shopping it around for an agent, and it took a really, really long time to get an agent, and I had a lot of no's in that, right? And so then I finally secured that. And then once I had that, you know, we reworked the manuscript, and then it went on a submission, and all I heard for months was no, like over and over and over again. And that's a really, really like common experience, you know? And so if I had sort of given up at any of those no's, I never would have gotten all the yeses that I have now, right? I could have quit, and I think anybody that has any measure of success, like there's very few people that are like these overnight, like in any field, really. It's like anyone that gets there has usually had a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get there, and had to develop really, really thick skin, you know? So I just kept going no matter what, and I refused. I I refuse to take no for an answer, right? One of the stories that I tell, again, with Phantom Limb. So eventually we couldn't sell that book. So I actually had a great agent. Like, she was wonderful. James Patterson, like, represents James Patterson. Like, just, we couldn't sell the book, right? But I was like super confident that I had a good story. And so initially then I took Phantom Limb and did it myself. So Phantom Limb was indie published, the first draft or round or whatever you would call it. And then it did really, really well. And then I just kept doing that. I did it with Appetite for Innocence, and then I did it with Saving Noah, because all three of those early titles are all self-published. And then that brought the attention to me, and that was sort of the beginning. But I've always been a hybrid author, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the wonderful things about the world we live in today, is there's no longer just one way to do anything.
That's true. Yeah.
Right? There's like it's like there's so many different ways to do things, because we live in a world where there's like so many different options, right? Which can be paralyzing, but also we have a lot of options, right? So
yeah,
I've sort of built. That's a really long way to answer your question of like, I've never given up. I've never given up.
Mm-hmm.
The whole time, even when I would get no's. If I got a no from an agent, I would send back out 5 queries to 5 new people, So I never gave up. And then, just kept going.
That's
perfect.
Yes, that's
And
so
charted
encouraging.
my own path, like charted my own path.
Right. And
Yeah.
like I said, if you hadn't done that, if you've taken those no's and were like, okay, I'll just try something new, you wouldn't be where you are. So that's so encouraging for us to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for a ton of people that are going to be listening to this,
Totally.
to just keep doing your thing.
Early writers, I mean, it's just like keep writing, keep sending, keep submitting.
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, don't stop.
Love that so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. So next little portion of this, we kind of want to actually talk about This Is a Safe Space, because we both recently finished it. We both absolutely loved it. I myself am like an audiobook mom right now. So when you put out like this audio only, I was like, yes, love. But almost all of your books are on Audible. So I've listened to all of them as well. Including Appetite for Innocence. She kept mentioning that one, and I wanted to say I love that one. But we want to talk about This Is a Safe Space a little bit. So if it's okay with you, I'm just going to give like a brief overview of the book, spoiler free, and then we'll kind of go through some questions about it, just like we would for our normal like book club episode, just to kind of break down the audiobook.
Perfect.
Okay. So for people who read along with us, they will be familiar with this, but we also like to give a little summary for our listeners, because sometimes we have people just listen in for the discussion, because for books like this, it's so relevant to real life. So it's like just talking about things that could actually happen. So this is like the gist of the audiobook. So the story follows Jenna, a therapist who's supposed to help people confront their secrets, but she's hiding a few of her own. When she stumbles across something shocking on her husband's phone, she becomes entangled in a dangerous mystery involving a client, a dancer from a bachelor party, and a chilling web of lies. It's one of those stories that keeps unraveling until the very last minute. It's intense, emotional, and full of psychological tension. And the audio experience is incredible, so it's narrated by a full cast, which was so cool, including Danielle Savar, who fans will know from Tell Me Lies, Alicia Crowder, Dan Bittner, Matt Godfrey, and Janiyah Edwards. So before we get into like the book discussion, we just wanted to ask you like about the audiobook process as an author, because we find that interesting. So how does that work on your end? Like, do you choose the narrators? Does your publisher do that? Or do you have a say? How does the whole audiobook process happen?
Yeah, so this Is a Safe Space is a little bit different than like just a traditional audiobook, because it's fully produced. So there's like a lot more that goes into the actual production of this one than just like a traditional audiobook. But yes, always, no matter what, you do have a say in like the narrators. So typically what happens, and I think that some authors have an idea of like, oh, I think so-and-so would read this part really well. But I have a really hard time imagining my characters in other voices other than in my head, right? So I'm like not one of those. Like some people can be like, oh, initially like, oh, I think these would be great from the jump and give them to their publishers and be like, can we get them? Me, I'm like, let's listen to a bunch, right? Because it always takes me a minute to not hear them the way I hear them in my head. So, but yeah, so when you're somebody like me, then what happens is you get a couple different choices, right? And you listen to them, and sometimes, and again, your team is also having an input. And so sometimes everybody agrees right away of like, oh, this person is perfect, they nailed it, and everyone's on board right away. Other times it's like somebody's like, oh, my agent might be like, oh, I really like this person. And I might be like, oh, I really like this person. And so then there's often like a discussion about that. But yeah, I definitely have a say in who's the narrator for them.
Do you have the final say?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know because we always end up in agreement. So I don't know what would happen if we like, I don't know if I
Like
would
a
like
standstill?
dead set on somebody. I don't know. I don't know if I have it, but I'm gonna ask.
It's just that's just one of the things we were actually talking about it on the way here.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder, because you answered that. Like, do you envision someone as you're creating,
Mm-hmm.
and then like
No,
what
there's
if?
a lot of people that do. There are a lot of people, there are a lot of writers and a lot of authors that do that have a very distinct idea. I'm just not one of them, right? So, but yeah, and then again, I don't know what would happen if I was like, no, this is who
Yeah.
Yeah. It works out that y'all are usually in like a general consensus. And I understand you not like being able to picture in your head, because when I'm reading Kindle or a physical book, I do only hear my voice. So that sounds like it would be difficult to picture a voice. But we were so like shook when we realized it was Diana from Tell Me Lies as one of the voices, because we love Tell Me Lies and
Yes.
we love Diana's. We're like, oh, I know this voice.
Same. I loved that show as well. And I will say my favorite part of the audiobook are those two in the therapy sessions. Like those two back and forth pulled off, like couldn't have pulled it off better, right? Than like that's my favorite part of the whole audiobook is the therapy sessions between Alicia and Danielle.
Yep. That and then the two husbands texting each other back and forth.
So good.
I guess we can get into our DBQs then.
Yeah, so something else that we do for our book analysis episodes is following a summary. We always do discussion-based analysis questions. We just call them the DBQs. So we'll just jump right into that. So Jenna's story begins with that temptation to look through someone's phone. And I think that's so relatable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Why do you think that urge to look is so powerful, even though it might lead to a painful discovery?
Because there's like our phones are like this, have become like this extension of ourselves now, right? And it's, they're basically carrying around a diary, right? Of like pictures, music, entertainment, all of those things, right? So it's a great breeding ground for a thriller, right? Because there's so much that could be like hidden in that. And because it's such a general, relatable experience of looking, right? Out of all of the stories that you hear, right, of not just like infidelity, but like of secrets and different things, right? It's like how many of them start with I looked in their phone, right? Or like I saw or not even looking, or like I saw something come up, or like their phone was still linked to the TV, like all of those things, right? Because there is this element of like the secret lives of our phones, right? And the intimacy that's there, all of the like who we are behind a screen versus who we are face to face. And then social media comes in on top of that. Like there's so many layers and levels to it, right? but so that's why the compulsion to look can also be so strong, is because you know what you might find in there, So, and especially in Jenna's case, if you have anything in your background that's given you any sort of like trust issues or betrayal issues, it's like even harder not to look and to respect that boundary or that privacy, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's just a significant other. Then you're like, is it okay to look in your kid's phone? Can you look in your kid's phone? Should you look in your kid's phone? At what age do you stop? I mean, it's like the phone thing is so multi-layered.
Yeah.
It is. And something in the book, in the audiobook too, that I was like, yeah, it was like, even if you don't find anything detrimental, you're bound to find something that will hurt you or taken out of context. So it's like, where's the line?
Punctuation.
Right.
Right, just think about
You
that,
hate me.
right? A text with no punctuation.
Yeah. You
What might
automatically
that
think.
mean? It could
Yeah.
mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could mean a variety of things, right? So it's like, yeah.
It was a great greeting brown for a thriller, I have to say. Yes.
It really was.
When I knew that I was going to do another, book that was just audio, and I went into like, because I have this like notebook where I'm always like keeping ideas of different ideas that I have, and so when I knew I was going to do another one, and I went into my ideas, and I had this whole like phone idea, I was like, oh, this would be perfect to do within this setting, because I immediately was like, you could do the text messages, which would be like a cool way for it to be revealed, so yeah, that's how it started.
It was.
That was such a good element
Mhm.
to be in that book. So as both a therapist and a woman protecting her family, Jenna faces impossible ethical choices. How do you think her professional code of ethics clashes with her emotional instincts?
Oof. Well, that's like the core ethical dilemma of the book, right?
Yeah.
For Jenna. I mean, that's her whole thing. And it's also the first thing that you talk about in any training in a helping profession, therapist, social worker, is like, what do you do if you discover a personal connection between you and, between your personal life and somebody that you're seeing in therapy? How do you address that?
Yeah.
How do you work through that? What do you do with that? Where are the lines? All of those things, right? So, and again, it's sort of like the crux of any Lucinda Berry book is like, what would you do in this impossible situation, right? And so it's like, she's in an impossible situation, right? Do you look? Do you not look? Do you try? Do you? And there was things that she could have done. Like I thought different pathways that she could have taken, right? So there was also, I don't think this really gives anything away, but I thought like as a therapist, right? It's like if you had, if she had she could have tried to influence her in certain ways to do certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
She could have been a bit more like nefarious and like, had bad intent,
Yeah.
There was lots of other things that she could have done that you could do if you just, you could manipulate a client in your favor if you wanted to,
So
depending on the situation. So
Yeah.
Like a power dynamic too.
Mhm.
That could have
yeah, that you could influence, right? Like if
For
I
sure.
discover that if I'm your therapist and I discover that I'm actually like seeing your boyfriend, I could in our therapy influence you to like break up with your boyfriend so that I can.
Yeah.
Okay, can that be a
Novella.
novella?
Yeah, that was one of my ideas, right?
Yeah.
You could very easily do that, and that was one of the directions for a while that I was like thought that I would do, because you could like, because you have, and again, that's why you have such strict code of ethics with therapists or any helping professional, is because there is that power differential, that they have. Then there is that level of trust for you that they have, that you're like, oh, this is in your best interest. You're believing that, right? Because
Mhm.
they're supposed to be helping you,
So interesting.
You could almost hear like Jenna's dilemma between
Mhm.
ethics and her personal life in the audiobook, because in her sessions, like you said, it was so immersive in the sessions. You could hear her truly caring about her patient.
Mhm.
And then when it was just her inner, her inner voice, you could hear her really caring about herself and like struggling between like, okay, how selfish can I be here?
Human nature.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
human nature is very
Right.
relatable. I was like, oh God, what is she going to do? I don't know what I would do.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's somebody that you care about, right? If it's somebody that you care about and you're like, oh, it's not just about me, it's gonna hurt somebody I love. What do you do? Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then another big part of the plot involves the stalking of a woman and how scary that can be. What made you want to include that in this particular story?
I think that's one of the ways that I'm constantly weaving like women's psychological issues into my stories still. That's one of the ways that I do it and draw attention to it.
Yeah.
And it's really scary. And it's really scary. So it's like a real life issue that needs attention at the same time that it's a really scary thing that works well in a thriller.
For sure. And kind of like ties back into the phone.
The phone.
You
Yeah.
can't
Yes.
escape it, really.
Yes.
It is a very scary like problem in society, and it was so scary because sometimes you just don't know who could really be watching you or obsessed with you, and it's scary when you feel like somebody might be not be taking you seriously. So you could feel all of that like frustration and emotion, and like believing women is so important. So all that was felt, especially in the narration. Like really the narrators did such a good job because you felt like fear in certain characters' voices. So it was all very well done.
It was great.
And going and like reporting it and feeling like people didn't believe you. And then I'm not hysterical. I'm not, just
Right.
imagining this. This is,
Right, I'm truly scared.
I'm scared. This is really happening. And I think that this will lead us into our last discussion-based question. I think that's just like the power of audio, kind of what we're discussing.
Yeah.
Oftentimes in the audiobook, listeners feel like they're eavesdropping, especially during the therapy sessions and the text message scenes. How does the audiobook format heighten that sense of intimacy and suspense?
Well, I think with part of it is like I think of it as like I envision people like with it in their ears, right? Like they're so they're listening to this, and so it's almost like when they're in those therapy sessions, it's almost like it's being whispered into their ears, right? And because they're such skilled, well, they're both actresses, right? And so it's like because they're such skilled narrators, it really feels like they're almost whispering their sort of secret sessions like in your ears. And I think it because it gets you able to maybe experience that intensity in a different way too, because you hear the when they catch their breath, right? You can, and because it's one of the things that they do such a great job at, and so just those little subtle cues of like danger that are audio subtle cues that are in your ears, just, and in writing it, all of the therapy sessions and the text messages are actually written just like a script.
Oh, cool.
So it's that piece plays into it as well. But yeah, a big part of it is just like I think about it like being like in the ears in a much more telling way, and being able to use other cues that you can't use, that you don't have when you're reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, or that as a reader you would maybe miss.
Mm-hmm.
That like listening to it, it really was an experience listening to the book. So
It was. So I just want to say, because we're both former middle school English teachers, so
Yeah.
this has just been like the most exciting conversation for us to like get into the mind of an author, because for so many years we taught like how to read certain texts and how to like analyze a text. So like to have you here is just like everything. So thank you. And we want to like round out the episode with just a fun little rapid fire game, because we played this a couple times on the podcast. We find it so fun, but it's from a reader's perspective. So we call it Bookish Smash or Pass. So like, do you love this trope, or like, are you about a trope? but from the author's point of view. So like, would you want to write this? Yes or no, smash or pass? Does that make sense?
Okay, would I want to write this smash or pass?
Yes.
Okay, got
Okay.
it. That's a great way to go out. Love it.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so the first one, dual timeline. So past and present storylines weaving together.
Ooh, smash. That's smash. I want to do it, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
smash.
Well, we sat on the car here. We're like, she's gonna smash all of these.
Like, I love doing POV. I'm like,
Smash. Okay.
all over it.
That was a major smash. Yes. Okay.
Morally gray main characters, the ones you love but you really shouldn't.
Smash.
They're great. Okay, books told entirely through letters, emails, or therapy transcripts.
Entirely pass.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
A shocking twist in the last chapter.
Smash.
Of course.
Of course.
Okay, I think we know this one, but the creepy child trope, the one that's like something seriously wrong with this kid.
Smash.
Smash.
Smash. Smash. Smash. A lot of smashing happening here.
Yeah, we figured.
We love that. Domestic thrillers that feel too real.
Ooh, smash.
Kind of like this one, honestly.
Yes.
Okay, open endings that leave you wondering what actually happened.
Smash.
Yeah, The Perfect Child.
Yeah.
I was so pissed when I finished The Perfect Child because I was like, really, Lucinda? And then I realized you
The
had
next-
to follow.
yeah.
I realized you had a welcome reunion. So I was like, okay, thank
We're
God.
good.
The initial draft, it did have an epilogue. My editor was like, we need to cut it. But yeah, I did initially write The Perfect Child with an epilogue.
Oh my gosh.
Our queen.
Yeah,
Duh.
we knew it.
Authors killing off the main character.
It depends. Pass-ish.
Pass-ish.
Got it. Yes.
Pass-ish.
A slow burn Okay, this is more of like a this or that. So what would you rather write? A slow burn psychological suspense or a super fast-paced, more crime-based thriller?
Fast-paced, crime-based.
Yes. Pass. I mean, smash on that.
Smash. All right, last one. A story where the narrator might be lying to the reader.
Smash.
Smash. Is that fun?
Fun for you, right?
I can
Fun for
imagine.
me to write. These
Yeah.
are all based on me writing. Now, I would probably answer a little bit differently as a reader, but as a
Yeah.
writer,
That's all fun.
smash, 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 smash.
Yeah, that's why we wanted that perspective. Because as a reader, we're like, no, pass. We don't want an
Pass.
unreliable narrator. But I can imagine as a writer, it's so fun to like really get into that different mindset.
Okay, Lucinda, this has been such an incredible conversation. Truly, we've been fans for so long. I know this is going to be so special for our listeners. It's so special to us, so we cannot thank you enough. One of the other things that we do to close out this type of episode is what we call a next on the shelf. And that is essentially what our next book club book will be. So we were going to ask you if there is a book of yours that should be our next on the shelf.
Maybe one we haven't read yet or an upcoming. So I'll tell you, we've read The Perfect Child, When She Returns, Saving Noah, Appetite for Innocence, Welcome Reunion,
Off the deep end.
Off the Deep End.
Did you do Phantom Limb yet?
No.
We haven't for our book club.
Phantom Limb. Phantom Limb is like one of my early ones, but it's, yeah.
And I'm glad you said that because you've mentioned that book a lot in
Yes.
this episode. And I'm like, I need to read this book.
Yes. All right. So you heard it.
And I'll get you guys early copies of Her First Lie, and I'll come back in April and we'll talk about that.
Oh gosh.
Amazing.
That's a dream for us. The Perfect Child. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
truly and honestly shaped so much of our podcast. Like I
You
want you
really
to know how
have.
much you have because that was one of the first books that we've read. And like I said, we're former and middle school English teachers. We started this podcast like with a true love for reading and like
Yeah.
breaking down a book. So it's books like yours that let us do that. Like really get into the nitty gritty of a book. So thank you so much. And we absolutely will be doing the next, what is it? Prologue? What is it? Before Perfect
Prequel.
Child? Prequel.
Prequel. I was
Yeah.
like, what is it? Prequel.
Prequel. We will be
So
doing
see
it.
you in April.
It sounds
Yay.
great.
Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
was such a treat.
Bye.
Bye.
Tink, tink.